Welcome to KLEAN Radio, the show about addiction and how to overcome it, featuring celebrity and professional interviews with people in recovery and how successful treatment has brought remarkable changes in their lives. With your hosts, Andrew.
I got married for the third time, and the over-under between all my friends was 15 months.
And Judah.
Well, it sounds profound if it doesn't make sense.
I guess so.
That's what I've learned about profoundness.
Break free of those habits that are controlling you. Life is waiting. Come and get it. KLEAN Radio starts now.
Oh, here we are. Welcome to KLEAN Radio. I'm Andrew, and my co-host Judah.
I'm Judah. My mic is hot.
And here we are on our new station. I can't believe it.
Yeah, KFWB 980.
That's right, the second season of KLEAN Radio.
You got it.
Starting with a bang.
Yeah.
On a new station.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot less of a drive than we had out to Anaheim. So
that's right. 1 hour less. Exactly.
Yes, 2 hours if you figure out.
Yeah. I don't get to stop and get my cheat meal, though.
Yes.
Anyway.
We're a show about addiction, and Andrew is addicted to McDonald's.
Junk food.
To junk food. And the number here is 888-539-2980.
So let's just tell people a little bit about who we are. We're a show about addiction and recovery. We also have a great website.
KLEANradio.com or KLEANtreatmentcenter.com.
Right.
And what is KLEAN Treatment Center?
KLEAN Treatment Center is actually the facility that we run, and we do addiction treatment, residential, and we also have an outpatient program for people with problems with drugs and alcohol.
And I think a big reason, if people are wondering why we're doing this show, you know, we Andrew and I had a big discussion about a year ago about so much stuff. There's not enough put on life after you get sober.
Right. And so instead of having just a show about addiction and like how to get sober, and we can address those issues certainly on the air, but we really want to talk more about what people do once they've gotten sober and how they can have a life in recovery.
And, you know, I mean, there's a lot of topical things constantly. And, you know, we were talking about outside about Michael Jackson, and, you know, your wife had a great point. You know, everybody wants to blame Conrad Murray. Everybody wants to blame everybody. But in the end of the day, he's the one that took the drugs.
That's true.
And he's the one that got the doctors. He's the one that got everybody. And we always want to take away the blame. But
well, I think there certainly is a level of blame that has to be placed on physicians when they're doing things that are unethical from within the Hippocratic Oath of a physician. But still, you know, there still has to be some blame placed on the fact that he was enabled by a whole group of people to use drugs to the point where it killed him. It's unfortunate. And, you know, they say the people that are poor and the people that are rich get the worst health care. And I think there's probably a lot of truth to that, you know. So if you have enough money and enough people that are living off of you, you're going to get what you want, even if it's in your worst interests.
Which leads to another, because people, you know, let's say 20 years ago, not everybody knew what treatment centers were.
Right.
And you're constantly flooded, whether it's with the passages, with that commercial, you know.
Right. Thanks for giving them a free commercial, by the way.
I'm sorry, but for passages rehab for $100,000, you can get, you know, you can
cure
get
for addiction that doesn't exist.
That's not AA.
Right.
That they very brag about. Yeah. And then you have all these other treatment centers that are constantly in the news. What is different about KLEAN?
You know, we're very much based on understanding that addiction is a disease, but also that there's a multitude of issues that exist below that problem of central addiction. And the clinicians that work and are affiliated with KLEAN have had, you know, 20 plus years each of working in behavioral health. So working with mental illness, issues like depression, anxiety, and other, psychiatric issues like bipolar illness. Manic depressive illness is called now. So we really understand that there's a multitude of things that can lead up to addiction. And then we also understand straight addiction. And then there's a multitude of different types of addiction. And also we understand the difference between use, drug abuse, and then drug addiction. And a lot of people don't understand there's a continuum there as well between those different levels and stages. So we'd like to work with clients early on an outpatient basis. Sometimes people come in and, they're beginning to have a problem. Maybe they got one DWI, but they haven't become a full-blown alcoholic. So we might work with them on an outpatient basis on how to moderate their drinking or stop drinking, and recognize that maybe they're headed towards becoming a full-blown alcoholic. And then people that are full-blown alcoholics, early or late stage, or have drug addictions, or have polysubstance abuse, where they're alcohol and drug dependent, we work especially well with them and their underlying mental conditions that might exist.
And if you just turned on the radio, you're listening to KLEAN Radio. That's Clean with a K. And I think the most important question anybody would have for you is, what's up with the name?
What's up with the name?
Clean with a K.
Yeah, well, Clean with a C was like a cleaning product.
Yes.
And I like Clean. I thought it was cool.
So there you go. Anybody wondering? And the number here is 888-539-2980. And this is our new station, KFWB, and it's pretty cool, CBS.
Yeah, definitely check us out on Facebook, too. We've been on for a year already, so we've switched stations, and we have quite a following on Facebook. You just put in Clean. You can join us there. You can also leave questions for us. We're also on Twitter.
And watch our archive shows at KLEANradio.com.
Yes, we've had some great guests. Yeah. Bob Forrest was a great guest.
Tony Dennison from The Closer. Right. We've had Ant. We've had just a slew of them. We'd be hurting some of the others if we mentioned them all and forgot one.
I know. and all of you, and you know who you are.
Yes, and your mother is a big fan, too.
Right.
And your mother has put me into pure fear of ever posting on Facebook because she's a spelling freak. So I thank you for that. And you're listening to KLEAN Radio. I'm Judah, and you are Andrew.
That's right.
And I like to, say who you are.
Let's go ahead and introduce our guest.
Yes.
So we have a guest in our studio, Alonzo Bodden. Welcome, Alonzo.
Thank you.
A great comedian.
Yes.
Amazing comedian.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I got to tell you, we have Alonzo Bodden in the studio today. I can't tell you how many people have walked up to me and said, because I mentioned that you're on the show, and they were like, you have to watch this guy's special. They were like talking about Showtime?
Yeah, it's on Showtime. It's called Who's Paying Attention, and the response to it has been huge. It's been great, and it was a lot of fun to do. And I think it was, you record a lot where there's just sometimes cameras in the club, this or that. It was one of those where they caught a really good set. So it worked. It was a great special because it was a really good set. I felt good about it, and as a comic, that's rare. Of course, I do, if you buy the DVD and you get the extras, I do all the bits that I forgot.
The outtakes.
You always do a show and then you're like, oh, man, I forgot this one. Oh, I forgot that one. So I did those in the outtakes on the DVD.
It's the extended version?
Yes.
I used to think extended version, sadly, how many extended versions I used to buy of movies thinking there was going to be extra nudity? Never.
No, I don't think so.
So that's not in Alonzo Bodden's extra.
No,
there's other DVDs you can buy for that, Judy.
Yeah, I know, but
you don't have to get the extended version.
I got suckered in the beginning. Thank you for coming to KLEAN Radio.
Cool to be here.
Yeah. So, our show's mostly about recovery and, like, people's sort of stories and then how they get sober and then where they go from there. How long ago did you get sober?
I've been sober 23 years.
Wow.
So I got sober in the 80s, so it was funny when you were talking about the other recovery treatment centers. Like, I got sober back when Schick was around, and it was,
right.
like 2 weeks of treatment and a couple of 2-day follow-ups. That was the big joke in recovery. Schick recovery was going to cure you. They used to have commercials all the time about it, and we saw a lot of people who, a couple of 2-day follow-ups didn't work.
Was it owned by Le Freak, like Chic Le Freak?
I don't know. I don't know.
They come with a Coke spoon when he left, right?
It was Schick, like the razor blade company.
Like, with an S.
Yeah,
I'm thinking like
you're thinking Chic.
Chic, right?
The rock.
Chic.
Yeah. But that one was funny, and
wow. There was another one because I remember hearing a woman sharing about that. There was another program that offered 30 days recovery. For 30 days you were better.
Right, and you're done.
Yeah. Where was that? That wasn't in L.A., was it?
No, it was nationwide.
Nationwide.
Wow.
Schick
was big back in the 80s. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
something
big.
I didn't know.
I
can't believe it. That's great. Wow.
So, but I didn't go that route. But it's been since March of '88.
That's a long time, 23 years.
I wasn't intended. I just ended up sticking around, and next thing you know, it's 23 years later.
All right. How does that happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So your comedy career, you were doing that before you got sober?
No. My comedy career is an absolute result of sobriety. I was an airplane mechanic, and then I was teaching airplane mechanics. And when I had 5 years, what happened? I've always had a sense of humor, and it used to be a very angry sense of humor or a deflective sense of humor. And when I got sober, there were a group of guys, and the only way I describe it is they laughed at me until I could laugh at myself.
Huh.
And my sense of humor changed. And then working as an aircraft maintenance instructor, I had fun making the students laugh. And it was just something I could do, make people laugh. And I had never been in a situation where I was in front of people. But to me, that's very natural. Whereas some people get nervous, I'm more comfortable talking to a group of people than talking to one person that I don't know. So I said I wanted to try comedy, and I did a comedy writing class and a 5-minute graduation show, and absolutely loved it. Like, it was literally that moment I knew that this is what I was going to do.
I hear that a lot with like really good comics.
Yeah.
The minute that they get it, they're like, I was born to do this.
Yeah, it literally was. And a friend of mine, a sober friend of mine, he said, it looks like we finally found what you were meant to do. And I got laid off from my aircraft job, and I just made a promise to myself, never look back, no more airplanes, and started pursuing comedy. And it's been a pretty good run.
So you never actually did comedy when you were using, so
no.
So you were
Not intentionally.
Not intentionally.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Right.
You're listening to KLEAN Radio. The number here is 888-539-2980. We're in the studio tonight with winner of Last Comic Standing and judge.
Yes, I did everything on the show except host. I was a runner-up, then I won it, then I was a judge for a while. Never got to host it.
So they allow you back.
Yeah, well, that was just one time. When they did after season 2, NBC wanted a fall show, so they said, all right, let's do another Last Comic Standing and take 10 comics from the first year and put them up against 10 comics from the second year. It's kind of like an all-star edition. So I won that one, which it wasn't highly rated. Not a lot of people saw it, and they ultimately canceled the final episode, so people didn't see me win, but they did let me keep the big fat check. So we're cool.
That's what it comes down to. And you could also find us, by the way, and this is I know we're doing a lot of plugs tonight, but this is our first show, so you could find us at KLEANradio.com, and you could live stream the show.
We're taking calls tonight.
And we are also taking
studio.
calls, so if you have any questions for Alonzo, it's 888-539-2980. 2980. It's like the station numbers.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you. And okay,
well,
so
you were the first to do that, Judah. No radio station, no show has ever thought of doing that before. You should lock that in. That could be a moneymaker right there.
You should patent the process.
Yeah, I think so. You're on to something, kid.
Thank you, kind soul.
Right? Normally, a drunk guy's thinking about that. Really, they should just do it with 2980.
2980.
There's some guy out there that's pissed. He's like, I thought about that when I was drinking.
Yeah, somebody probably did.
Right, but he never got sober, so he never got a chance.
The sober guy wrote that idea down. And said,
You see, but that's, again, we're a show about talking about sobriety, and that's one of my favorite things that you just mentioned is that I used to say, it's like those bar, when you're drinking, and I'm sure you did this too. You were working in the airlines, and you were thinking what I could do. Maybe you were thinking that, like, oh, my God, I know I could do something. And it's like you always, and it's like until you get sober.
How much do you want from me, Judah? I was fixing airplanes. I was licensed to work on aircraft. What more did you want from me? You have any idea the technology I embraced on a daily basis? Where'd you find this guy, Andrew? How high is the bar that working on the stealth fighter, building the airplane that helped save democracy in the Middle East? Oh, that's not enough for Judah. Why don't you aim higher? Judah? Just stop it.
Right? He's working for free. What do you want, Alonzo?
I mean, this is just like, I'm lucky. I get a soda out of this deal.
Yeah, right.
Judah with his judgment.
I get soda and cigarettes. I'm happy.
What more could you have
Judah
done?
Judgment Friedman.
That's Judah Judgment, JJF.
JJF. Right? Wow, that sounds...
No, but I think, at least for me, that was, I used to work in, the last job, and I used to think to myself every day I was going to go and say to my boss, I think this is a good idea, or and it never happened when I was drinking. Because the next day I'd wake up and just forget about those thoughts. That was me.
Yeah.
Maybe
you're right. No, it definitely happens. It's the drunk dreaming. It's the I could do this. And the thing about being at the bar, and I wasn't really a bar drinker. I wasn't a social drinker, but it is true. Like people, it's all talk, right? But other people endorse your BS because they're full of it too. You know what I mean? Like it's the same group, so you're all telling each other the same lies. You know what I mean? It's like a bunch of guys getting together and lying about the women they had, right? They're all telling the same lies, so you never punch a hole in someone else's lie because you got your own lie going. You're right, and
mutual reinforced denial.
Yeah, and then you get sober, and it's amazing what sober people do, because once you pull the drugs and alcohol out of the way, and the clarity of thinking comes back, and the energy comes back, and then it's literally astounding how much talent, intelligence, ingenuity, and stuff you see coming from sober people. And a lot of people don't know it. They don't realize it. And then
even comics, I hang out a lot at Comedy Store and Improv and all these other places, and half of them are loaded or more. I'm being kind, I think, right? And a lot of comics we've met seem to think that they need to be loaded to do it. Like I need a couple drinks to get up there, but really they're doing like 8 or 9, maybe a little extra something somewhere, right? And, and then we get these people in and they go, wow, when I got sober after having, thinking I was doing so great, I realized that I was actually just missing the whole point. There's like a professionalism that I didn't understand.
That's true of a lot of creative artists, like musicians. The same thing, obviously, the stereotype of the, heroin-addicted jazz musician.
Right. Right.
But the funny thing about comics, I had an experience with a friend. I'll use his first name, Lenny, and I used to see him at the Laugh Factory all the time, and blah. And we had, he was funny, and he had a great career in this and that. And then years later, I saw him. We were doing a sober comedy show, and he was like, now I understand. He was like, I was always out of control. And he said, I always kind of wondered why you weren't crazy. And because I was sober at the time and he was he was like, now I understand why you weren't crazy. He was like, thank you. You were nice to me, because the guy he wasn't that destructive, but it was, he's doing better now. Just put it that way.
Right.
How many times, though, does that happen that that people walk up to you a little bit later and say,
people recognize me from one world to the other, right? From the comedy world to the sobriety world. It happens, it happens more with sober people recognizing me as a comic, than comics or anyone in a comedy club recognizing me as sober, But it's fun. One of my favorite shows is a show called Yuckaholics, which is a fundraiser we do here in L.A. every year. Well, I've been part of it a few times. It's been around for a lot of years, and it's just a fundraiser where they'll have 6 to 8 sober comics do shows, and we do an afternoon show mainly for people in recovery homes, and that one's fun because you get the best compliment you can. People say, "I never thought I'd laugh sober."
It's funny. You see that a lot in restaurants. I always joke that, you want to know who the loudest table is in the restaurant. It's always the sober table.
Yeah.
Right? It's like that group of 4 sober guys or whatever. And excuse me. And they're just like laughing their ass off. And everybody's like, what's going on over there? And they're like, they're not even drinking.
Yeah.
It's like guys drinking, they're miserable looking down.
But it's so important to talk about it because we were talking about it before the show, and I won't mention who you were saying a certain comic won't talk about certain people. Won't joke.
Right.
I don't know if you felt comfortable in saying who, but and we were talking about obviously Lindsay Lohan's, and we were talking about because they have become the face, sadly, of the sober people not getting it.
But something, those, and like the Lindsay Lohan, Britney Spears, Charlie Sheen, and you can go down the whole list. I don't think they're in any way associated with sobriety. They're part of the joke of rehab. Like the word rehab is a punchline.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they're associated with the punchline of rehab. I don't think anybody who's seriously considering getting sober or is in a position where they have to get sober or they, whatever, they're not looking at Lindsay Lohan as a judge of, maybe I should go to the program Lindsay went to. You know what I mean? It's like that's not real. That's just
Can I tell you something shocking?
Crap.
People actually do call up and go to rehabs because certain places Lindsay Lohan went to.
Yeah, and how long do they stay?
Yeah, no, not very long. Right.
I was shocked. Well, I was just on Dr. Drew this past week.
Look at you, impressive.
On his Life Changers Day show, and I was amazed how many calls we got the next day. Just all of a sudden, it was this credibility.
Yeah, it's
it's scary.
It's funny
scary.
how TV and
TV gives it credibility, but
people.
But again, the celebrity rehab is not real rehab.
Right.
Exactly.
Celebrity rehab is a career boost.
Well, the people we had that came, it was the DeBarge family from back in the 80s.
Yeah, El DeBarge.
Yeah, so we had 3 of them, 3 of the family members. Bunny was the one that stayed, and she's like, this isn't anything like celebrity rehab. I was expecting like drama and people throwing up and seizures and stuff.
Right, that's
and
TV,
I'm like, no, that's TV. That's reality TV.
Yeah,
right. That's not rehab. Rehab is actually a place where you can go and get help.
Which I think people need to hear. And I think, there are family members driving right now, listening or at home on the radio, thinking, they see that stuff. And what is rehab? What is rehab?
Well, and that it can be a safe place,
Yeah.
It's a place if people really do want to get better, and we have so many problems now where the substances are so much more addictive, and the consequences of coming off from cold turkey are much more dangerous than they used to be. So we have drug-induced psychosis from meth. We have people hooked on benzodiazepines like Valium and Xanax, and if you come straight off them without proper detox, you can have seizures. So even alcohol, Amy Winehouse is a perfect example of someone who was trying to get sober and didn't do it the right way, and her body just gave out. So this stuff happens, and if you are out there and you're drinking a lot and use a lot of drugs, don't just go cold turkey, because that can be more dangerous than even using for the time being.
You're listening to KLEAN Radio. The number here is 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980. We're in the studio tonight with Alonzo Bodden, winner of The Last Comic Standing. How cool is that? That nobody saw the last episode.
No, nobody saw. No, I was just laughing at what you said about going cold turkey. A good addict goes cold turkey every time he's broke. I didn't intend to go cold turkey, but I ran out of money, so I'm on a cold turkey run right now. But that is the reality of it. I mean, that does happen, and obviously I understand what you're saying about the medical aspects of it, but the reality aspects of it is that happens. You go broke. I mean, very few people, I think, want to get sober. Like, people don't come strolling into sobriety.
Right.
Like, you hit a bottom. You got beat down, whether it be financial, emotional, or like you were talking about DUIs and getting arrested and stuff like that. Ultimately, that was my bottom, getting arrested. But when you get here, you get here however you get here. And one of the things about celebrity, because I've been around celebrity, and I used to be around athletes who got into the program, and it's always a mixed blessing, because the good side is you have more help than imaginable. Like, you have people to help you in programs, and there's money, and there's this and that. But the bad side is you're doing it publicly. You don't have that level of anonymity or privacy, and if you screw up, it's a big deal. So there's two sides to the coin. I don't know.
There's a lot of shame around relapse in general. Even when you become a member of like AA or something, and you have a lot of sober friends, even people that relapse are scared to admit it. And they have this huge fear, often, not always, but often, because of the shame. There's a lot of shame.
Yeah, and there can be an ego attached to time, and it's not just that. I'll tell you another problem, because I know some people have been sober a long time and have gone out and gotten loaded. There's no new information. In other words, like I've been in this program 23 years, right? So if I got loaded and came back, and I would just be hearing the same thing again, and I might be very dismissive, like, that doesn't work. I heard, and that does happen to people. It's obviously a tough road to do that. But
do you think there were underlying issues involved?
With me?
With your drinking, or was it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think. First of all, if you're a comic, there are deep underlying issues. All right? Forget about
the drinking, right?
Forget about addiction. If you're a comic, there's deep issues involved.
Right? We have Comics Anonymous. That's going to be our thing.
That's a whole other question.
The last thing you want to do is cure us, because we wouldn't be funny.
Is that hard for you?
Wait. Do you think that's true? Do you
Absolutely,
really think that if you get...
the comic has to be a broken toy.
You have to
The comic has to be a broken toy, and maybe not a destructive broken toy,
right?
But definitely a broken toy, because if you're not, then you don't analyze society. You don't analyze life, whether it be like me, where I'm like more of a social commentary, political kind of guy.
It's that perspective, though, right? You have a twisted perspective that nobody else has.
Well, with me, like, I see something and I say it, and people are like, hey, wait a minute, that's right, that's true. Like, I never thought of that, but it's absolutely true. And then you have the people who might look at their own life and be that way, but they still have, you know what I mean? Like, every comic has his own twisted perspective, and you bring people in, and it's great when everyone understands it And they're like, yeah, you're right. Like, earlier we were listening to a show, they were talking about George Carlin.
Right.
And how many things did George Carlin say about society that people were like,
right. And
he's
they were
right.
simple things. I mean, he would talk about everyday things,
Yeah.
but he would give you a new perspective. It was like the Rubik's Cube of perspective.
He'd
of
also
a simple
say
idea.
it was one of the cool things that I guess that you get to do is you say it's okay to talk about this stuff because I think comedy brings that.
Oh, yeah. Well, you look at right now, the greatest guy in news right now is Jon Stewart because he's the only guy with no agenda.
Right.
He's a comic, which means you don't like either side.
Right.
That's
Hopefully.
like we and he will skewer Democrat, Republican, or this, that, like either side of any issue that gets stupid, he will skewer them because he's the comic. The thing I love about being a comic, and the reason I have my jester tattoos, is the jester was the only guy who could make fun of the king. But if it wasn't funny, they chopped off his head. And that's the way I love
Stakes
it that
are
way.
pretty
Yeah,
high.
I want the stakes to be that high. It's like, I'm allowed to talk about anything,
Right.
but if it's not funny, you can kill me. And my agent says no, but it's all right.
You're listening to Clean Radio. The number here is 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980. That's Clean Radio. We're in the studio tonight with Judah and Andrew and Alonzo Bodden, winner of Last Comic Standing, and judge. What was it easier to do, judge or be judge?
Oh, it was much easier to be a competitor. Because when I was a competitor, the thing about the show was I just tried to survive every week.
Right.
That was my goal. I never thought about the enormity of the show, and I didn't realize the enormity of the show until I became a judge and saw literally hundreds of people in line in every city we went to. Then you realize, wow, I beat out thousands of people to get on the show,
Right.
and then to go ahead and win it.
And now you get to shatter millions of people's dreams.
Yeah. Well, the toughest thing about
gotta be hard,
thing about judging is when you're judging not just friends. I had to judge comics that I had opened for early in my career,
Right.
And now I'm sitting at the table, and the thing is, it was never that they weren't funny. But if you pick the wrong material on a given night, you have 3 to 5 minutes. That's your shot. And
That's
if you
tough.
pick the wrong thing and it doesn't go over, even though we know how funny you are, we can't pass you based on the fact we know you're funny. We have to do it based on
That
what
3
you
minutes.
did that night. So but 99% of the comics got it. They were cool. There were a couple of comics that had, some resentment, some bitterness, but 99% of the comics, they were like, hey man, it's a gig, it's a job, it's what you do, and you take your shot.
Has
in
there
that
been
moment.
pushback in the comedic world from comedians?
There were comedians. There were always comedians that don't like the show. Listen, you can't compete in comedy. Like, there's no perfect competition. It's not like a sport. It's not like baseball, basketball, or golf where there's rules and here's how you do it. It's very subjective. So to say one comic is better than another, like I say, it could be the material, it can be a given night, this or that. But the thing about the show is nobody else was putting comics on in primetime TV.
Right.
When we peaked on season 2 toward the finals, you're getting 10, 12 million viewers a week. There's nothing in comedy where 10 million people are going to see you do 5 minutes of comedy. That is tremendous, and that's what the show provided. So was it perfect as far as competition? No. But then the other side of the coin, people are like, oh, the show is rigged. And I was like really? Then who did they fix it for? Because it wasn't like anyone became a big star. Like, NBC had no vested interest in any winner. They were like, look, we're doing a show. We don't care who wins. Now, did they break up the casting? Yeah, they wanted they wanted a mixture of comedians. Like, they wouldn't want the show to be all white guys. They wouldn't want it to be all black guys. They wouldn't want it to be all women, all Asian, whatever. So there was a bit of a breakdown in, like, okay, we want a certain breakdown out of the 10 comedians, but it was never fixed. Or if it was, they didn't call me. They didn't call me and say, hey, Alonzo, the fix is in. You're going to win.
You're in. You were in part of the fix.
Yeah, nobody told me.
We actually have to go out for a break. We're on Clean Radio.
It's cleanradio.com. You could find us at. You could also find us on Facebook at Clean Radio. The number here is 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980.
We'll be right back with Alonzo Bodden.
Do Do you suspect a loved one is abusing drugs? Call KLEAN Treatment Center at 888-601-6040 for a free drug test and consultation. A treatment advisor is available to help you administer the test and answer any questions you may have regarding treatment and more. We are here to help. Call us today at 888-601-6040 or find us online at cleantreatmentcenter.com for your free drug test and the start of a promising future.
Now, back to Andrew and Judah.
Welcome back to KLEAN Radio. Oh, we got a little Judah dance there.
Yeah, the beat's a little off. The music's a little different. I'm getting used to the new show over here at 980 KFWB.
And for those who aren't familiar with the Judah dance, you have to go to KLEANradio.com, click on profiles, and at the bottom of Judah's bio, there's a link to the Judah dance.
And it's well worth clicking on.
Yes,
just
it
the
is.
brief moment I just saw.
You have no idea. It's Patrick who actually shoots the video here. You can watch us live on KLEANradio.com. But Patrick actually put together this segment of the Judah dance to Tiny Dancer by Elton John. And I have to say, it is one of the funnier things I've ever seen.
And we're a show about sobriety, and I want to tell you that's a gift of sobriety that I could sit in the radio studio.
Jackass.
When I was drinking, this is beyond the scope.
He was standing on a bar stool doing it.
I was actually in Brooklyn or Israel.
In Brooklyn, right?
But that was beyond the scope. It wasn't, and that's what I was trying to. I was asking you before. We're in the studio tonight with winner of the Last Comic Standing and judge from the Last Comic Standing, Alonzo Bodden. And thank you again for coming in.
I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here. And it's funny, you talked about listening to the radio. That back in the 80s, when I used to do cocaine, there was this ad that would come on, and it would come on about 2 in the morning. And it'd be like, "You're still up? You're out of cocaine? You're out of money? Give us a call." And it was like a rehab place. And it would come on every hour. So like 3 a.m. they'd be, "You're still listening, aren't you?" Bars closed. Yeah, it was
like talking in your head.
It was bad. So by 5 a.m. he's like, "We're the only ones still here with you," and you'd be like, "Stop it!"
Did you ever call it?
No. But it was great. Whoever's idea, whoever came up with that,
right? They should have had birds chirping.
There was an addict.
That would have been the birds chirping
birds on there.
Nothing worse than the birds chirping.
So you were on Last Comic Standing, and you were sober.
Yeah, and they collided in interesting ways. Like when we were doing the show, when we did season 2, we lived in this castle up in the Hollywood Hills, and it was a weird situation. And the producers like to start fights because they felt
drama, right?
They felt drama and controversy would sell, and they'd mess with your head and this and that. And I always remembered. There was this old timer at my home group, 40 some odd years, just one of those crusty guys who just says simple stuff, and he's like, "It's a day at a time, F it," and I remembered him saying that. So there were times when it would get on my nerves, and I would literally just think to myself, "It's a day at a time. Like, it doesn't matter what's going on with the show, it's just today." And then when we got out of the whole living together portion and started doing the live shows, I was always surprised. There would always be a big group of sober fans that would come to the show, and they'd be like holding up signs and supporting me. And I got a lot of real cool emails from people who were like, "Man, we're glad you're on there. You're our guy," and stuff like that. So that felt pretty good to be kind of representing the sober community.
Do you get that a lot? Because that's got to be amazing.
I get it. Yeah, I get it sometimes. Like I say, emails, and now with Facebook and all the social media and mass communication. Yeah, I get it. And it's a cool feeling when people respond to that, because like you were saying, that's the hope portion of it, That's the hope portion, and
because we were talking about Behind the Music, which was behind the Music, which was always a great show. They always showed the experience of what happened to the bands, then the mess, but they never showed, and I was always curious about it after.
Right.
I was always curious what happened. Like, what happens when you get...
A lot of them didn't get sober. A lot of them died.
And one of the things I was asking, we were talking about in the break, is like, when you have a great set, when you perform in front of, I'm sure you've performed nights in front of thousands of people, and you rock, what do you do after?
It's a strange feeling. It's almost like a disconnect. Some of my best sets, if I walk off stage and people are like, "Wow, what did you do?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know what I said. And in sports, they call it being unconscious, and that's what happens. You're so in the moment, and you're just doing it that you're not thinking about doing it. Now, when you have great successes, like when I won Last Comic Standing, well, that was kind of weird because I kind of knew I won before it aired on the show, you know, because they told us. But the night you find out you won, again, it's almost like a disconnect. It's like, wow, this is great. And the best description I ever heard of it, Isaiah Thomas won MVP at an NBA All-Star game one year, and he said, you know something? Today I am the best basketball player in the world. Right. Like, it's just for this moment. You know what I mean? Right. So when I won Last Comic Standing, it was like, all right, for this moment, like, I'm the best comic there is. And it lasts for one moment, and then you're like, now what's next? Right. You know, what do I – because it's a creativity thing, right? So it's a growth. And one of my problems, like we were talking about the broken thing, and people have told me this all the time. They're like, man, you just don't know how to enjoy success. Because you achieve something, and then it's like, well, what's next? What do I want to do? And
well, that's an interesting question. You know, you're listening to KLEAN Radio. We're in the studio. You could call us at 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980. We're in the studio with Alonzo Bodden. If you'd like to ask him any questions, that's a good question because you're just saying about success. How do you deal with success being sober?
Oh, sobriety puts it in perspective. That's what I get. I'm fortunate that I know people in sobriety who are unbelievably successful, you know, award winners in all different areas, and they help you put it in perspective because success can be as dangerous as failure. You know what I mean? As far as you wanting to over-celebrate or wanting to sabotage it and destroy yourself and this and that. So where recovery works with success, for me, it's perspective. But it's also saying that, hey, I can do this now, like the motorcycle thing. You know, I'm a motorcycle nut. I love bikes, and I've been fortunate enough that now I can afford different bikes and get the toys that I want. And sobriety has allowed me to enjoy that as opposed to feeling guilty for doing it or being afraid to do it or whatever. It's in perspective.
Or being like, healthy enough to do it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And so I get to enjoy that. And sometimes the purchases are totally irrational, and I get to laugh at that, but I survive it, you know. So yeah, it definitely helps with life's perspective, whether it be success or failure. But you know, and then you talk to people, and you see what real success is, you know. And it still feels better to watch someone get sober than to buy a new car. You know, that will always be the case. So it brings a taste of real life, especially with Hollywood. I mean, Hollywood is so glamorous, but most of it isn't real. It's a show. It's a show, and it looks great, and this and that, and sobriety brings the element of reality to it, to where because it's so easy to believe this and to be on top and believe, you know, that's why we have such horrific crashes in the business, because you believe the world rotates around you. And then someone else comes along, and you just don't count anymore.
Was it Dana Carvey who said that if they take a grapefruit and they put it on TV and just showed it, like they had a show about a grapefruit, and then they could actually take that grapefruit and tour it around malls of America?
Oh, absolutely.
And like people would line up to see the grapefruit.
I mean, that's reality TV. The thing about reality TV, you're famous, but you have no talent. You don't do it. You know what I mean? Right. And like, see, the thing about a show like Last Comic Standing, The Contender, or the musical
shows, based on merit.
Those people, you're looking at people who do have talent. But when you look at just the crazy, the Real World, Jersey Shore, whatever, it's like, okay, these are just interesting people, nutty people, whatever. We're just going to put cameras on them and watch them go, and then they're famous, and they're super famous and super rich.
Yeah, I heard
but they
like
don't do anything.
Who's that guy? The Situation made like $5 million last year.
12.
And Kardashian made 38.
Yeah.
Right.
And
unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you know something? I mean, it's you want to resent it, but then it's like, God bless them. Yeah. They know how to work the system.
Well, it says more about the people watching than the people that do it.
Yeah,
you know?
that's America. You know? Listen, there was a major news story about Bert and Ernie not being gay. And at no point in the story did they acknowledge Bert and Ernie are not real. Bert and Ernie are Muppets. But they
we're talking
honestly,
about two hands.
They covered it, and it was and you're like, wow, like that's where we're at as a country. Like we're worried about gay Muppets, you know, and God bless us, but I think we have bigger problems.
Absolutely.
So when if you look at the major news story being gay Muppets, the situation making $12 million fits perfectly. Yes, he should, because he's not a gay Muppet. He's a real person.
And if anybody just tuned into the show, you're listening to KLEAN Radio.
And figure out how that story goes with sobriety.
You want to know how it does? And I was just thinking about that. That's why I brought that up.
Judah was a gay Muppet.
Because I was a gay Muppet, and my boyfriend's name was Ernie.
So you're a Bert?
This is the fun.
Is that what we're finding out?
This is where I have the fun. This is where the fun in sobriety is. How many nights, after you go to a 12-step meeting, you go to the diner afterwards, and you have these conversations, probably the same ones half a dozen times. But when I was drinking, all I wanted was to have that type of thing. All I wanted was to be able to sit at a diner, have a Blockbuster night, to sound really cliche. I just wanted peace. I just wanted freedom. And that's the gift.
Yeah, the gift is you notice what's going on. And the gift is laughter.
Yeah.
You laugh. Like when you're drinking and using, life is very serious.
Yeah.
You're very focused, because I lived $20 at a time. That was my life. When I was drinking and using, my life was the next $20. $20 was another hit. $20 was another bottle. $20 was whatever, and it was very serious. And that's all I had to get.
How did you get caught up in drugs and alcohol? Was it from youth or?
Yeah. I started when I was a kid, and I always joke that this is one of the great things about recovery. This is where addicts and alcoholics are different than normal people. I started getting loaded when I was 13. Right now, normal people would be disturbed by that. You know what I mean? The fact that 13, oh my God. Whereas you say that in a meeting, they're like, well, you waited that long? You waited till 13?
I know. I feel sometimes bad for saying I started at 15.
Right.
People are like, what was wrong with you?
Right? You didn't really have a problem, did you? So, but I did it because the older guys did it and they were cool. And it worked for me. The science of addiction and alcoholism. I don't. My personal belief is that I was born an addict and an alcoholic. I don't really know why or how, but I know I loved it from the start, and I loved getting loaded alone. And they say that's one of the big, identifiers of the addict and alcoholic versus the drinker or whatever. But yeah, I loved getting loaded alone. I loved altering the state of consciousness, and it wasn't like I suddenly felt like I fit in or I was okay, because I never did feel okay. But when I was in an outpatient rehab, this doctor said, well, you were treating yourself. Like you knew something was wrong, and in your mind, this was the only way to treat it, and now we're going to show you other ways to treat it.
Well, that's one of the things I always tell people. People are like, drugs don't work, alcohol doesn't work. I'm like, yeah, they actually do work. They work really well. That's why we have so many people that have problems.
Until they stop working.
The problem is at some point, they become destructive, or people can't manage their use, or they were set up from the beginning, genetically or whatever, not to be able to control the use, and it becomes destructive.
The thing now, and believe me, I am not a crusader. If you want to get high, I don't care. Enjoy yourself. I'm fine with medical marijuana and all that. Medical marijuana is hilarious to me, but do what you want to do. But we are in a society of better living through chemistry.
Right.
And the downside of it is, and I have a friend named Doug Stanhope. He's a comic.
Great comic.
Brilliant comic. And he did a whole thing about it, that the problem is the moment you have a feeling, they come up with a drug to get rid of it. And a lot of these feelings are real and necessary. Like now they have this whole thing that kids don't have ADD, and it's like, well, no, they don't. They're kids. Like at 2 years old, you have no attention span.
Has Doug ever had a sober moment, though, to feel a real feeling?
I don't know if he's had a sober moment, but he's had some of the most brilliant moments in comedy.
I happen to enjoy. I have a hard time when I watch him, because
he's very triggering.
He's very triggering, and it's not that I want to. I almost want to say to him, "Come on, man, you're so good."
Well, I went and saw him live, and it was like this. It was like a concert hall.
I love Doug stand-up,
but it was stand-up. But it was like a fan club for alcoholics.
But see, that's just who he is, and that's his life. I love him, and I would not deny him that or change that for a moment, because that's his choice, and that's how he lives and what he does. So, that's where I don't get into the judgment of it. Listen, whatever Doug Stanhope doesn't do, whatever he's doing, to me, he is brilliant on stage, hilarious. And I love him. If when it gets destructive and people get hurt, we've lost musicians like that. I mean, Richard Pryor, how much longer might he have lived had he not done a garbage can full of cocaine every year?
Yeah, right.
I don't know, but then maybe he wouldn't have, who can make that decision?
That's the hard question.
Right? So I don't make that decision for others.
I think Richard Pryor was genius enough that Coke or no Coke, he still would have.
Yeah.
You're listening to KLEAN Radio. That's KLEAN with a K. You can find us on Facebook at KLEAN Radio. You could also find us at KLEANradio.com and watch our live stream on KLEANradio.com. Just click the live stream. The number here is 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980. I know I'm messing up the number. I'm not messing up the number. It's the station.
The delivery.
You're listening to 980. It's 2980. And we're in the studio tonight with Alonzo Bodden, and everybody I mentioned that you're going to be on the show to was my friend Tony Dennison, who's on the closer. He said something about Hawaii. You have a joke about Hawaii, or I'm sure you have a lot of jokes. Something you said about
I'm trying to think.
He said something, but he was cracking up. He's a huge fan.
I've made fun of everywhere I've been,
yeah,
so I can't remember.
Thanks for queuing him in on that pre-show, right?
Now I gotta think
no, I'm sorry about that, but he just couldn't stop laughing as he was telling me the joke. And so
this is like your comedian. Be funny now, please.
No, I'm not asking you to tell the joke. But it is really cool.
That's when being a comic is cool, because I know who Tony is, and people know Tony from the closer.
Yeah.
But Tony was on Crime Story, which was like the greatest show. So just sitting here like, man, Ray Luca from Crime Story thought my joke was funny. Like that feels good to me.
Ray Luca, can I tell you what's crazy is that's how I met him, is when I first moved out to L.A. years ago. My family in Brooklyn, we would watch Crime Story, and the one, like, in those days everybody had one TV, and in my house it was like, the song would come on from Crime Story. It was in the Wanderers song. It was it was Runaway, and my family would get a little happy singing this song. And I remember when I first moved out here and I saw Tony, and I was going through a really rough time in sobriety, which and I walked up to him and I tell him this whole story, and he gets this big smile on my face, and he's like, "You want to grab a cup of coffee?" And I was like, "Ray Luca just asked me to go get a cup of coffee," and it's cool, Sometimes, talking about sobriety out loud, it allows people that normally might be a little intimidated to walk up to you and say, "Hey, you're Alonzo."
Yeah, it's two different worlds, because when you're in the recovery world, and I've seen like major stars in recovery, but if you approach them from the point of recovery, not from the point of, oh my God, you're so and so, they're usually very cool about it, and there is a community where they have like some private meetings and they go, and I can understand it to some extent, but it's not my thing,
right?
But then I'm not as famous as they are. Some of these people are so famous they probably can't go somewhere in public because they become a distraction,
right?
But usually that's
an interesting.
That's not people who think they're that famous. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like the guy who thinks he's a distraction, he's not a distraction.
But that's something. Anonymity is a state of mind, and I really do believe that, because you could be anonymous and you could be famous and anonymous at the same time.
Well, I think most alcoholics, though, when they come into a room, think
everybody's looking at them,
right? Famous or not, they're just like all self-obsessed.
My first sponsor, he used to say that to me. He said, "It's amazing." He said, "Man, there's over 6 billion people in the world, and at any given moment, not one of them is thinking about you."
It was like, it's true. I was working like crazy when I first got sober. My friend Big Judah goes to me. He wanted to invite me somewhere. And I go, "Judah,
wait. Big Judah?"
Yeah, in the Jewish community, Judah's not that unpopular of a name.
Right.
So Big Judah, who was sober, it looked like George Costanza. And I wanted to take a couple hours off, and he wanted me to hang out with him for a couple hours. And he goes, and I was like, "No, I can't. I got to work. I'm on this mission to work." He goes, "Do you realize the world lived without you for 22 years? It could live without you for a couple hours."
Yeah.
And it's just, I thought
well, work can be an addiction.
Yeah.
It's
people would definitely
distraction.
say I'm a workaholic. Yeah. I work all the time. I go crazy not working. And oddly enough, when we were judging Last Comic, that's the longest I went without being on stage. There was a 3-week period where I didn't get up, and I was going nuts.
Wow.
I have to get on stage every week, and it's like I'll go on a trip. I had this experience. 2 friends of mine married. One was a musician, his wife, but I knew them both in the program. So he's doing a sober gig at a Club Med.
Right.
And then he wants to come home. And she called me. She said, "He wants to come home." And I said, "Yeah." She said, but they're letting us stay the whole week. I said, "Listen, once we finish the gig, we're done. We
right.
like." And she said, you mean I'm never going to go on a vacation in my life? And I was like, no, we don't do vacations. We work, because every gig is the last time you're ever going to work. So you never turn down anything. And I'm still like that. I work. Some would say I work too much. I don't know if I work too much, but
the people that aren't working probably saying you're working too much.
Well, it's the process too. I think people that like a lot of people work for outcomes, right? Like people work for money or they work for fame, and that's never really the right reason. It's like people get sober because for somebody else. That's the wrong reason. You know, the process of work is the passion, the idea that you have to do it, and it's the actual work that's the reward, not the outcome.
That's the way it is. I absolutely love doing it, but like I know relationships have suffered. That's where my area, like relationships, have definitely suffered, because the funny thing about women is they want you around.
Wait, the funny thing about women?
That's the only funny thing about them. That's it. No, and you know, I'm traveling all the time. The girlfriend I had when I was doing Last Comic Standing, I was so ridiculously busy between shooting the show and doing live shows. I was literally home one day a week for about 12, 13 weeks. And she was like, can I get a surrogate boyfriend so I have a date on weekends? Because I was traveling all the time, So, and you know, that definitely.
My wife has that. It's like a whole station in the corner of the bedroom, but whatever.
Were you married? Have you ever? Were you? How is that different than before you got sober?
Before I got sober, I had an intense relationship with cocaine, and she doesn't like anybody else around, you know. And I never got into the freaky sex part of cocaine, because in the 80s, cocaine was like the sex drug, and it was big. And my thing was, I never met a woman that looked better than a rock. So I never, you know, that never got in the way of me smoking cocaine. And then, but career-wise, like you asked, have I ever been married? No, but I've always been a traveling guy.
Right.
When I worked in aerospace, I traveled a lot. In comedy, I travel a lot, so it makes it difficult.
So you were doing coke in New York in the 80s, right? So
no, here. I was in LA.
Here.
Yeah.
When did you come out here? I
came out here in 1980.
Did they have the colored vial tops out here in LA like they did in New York? Like I remember when crack hit in New York in the 80s, and you go to the parks and they'd just be littered with those little plastic.
Yeah, the little plastic vials.
Yeah, right. What happened to those?
Like, I
don't know.
Well, cocaine has fallen off.
Now it's meth.
In the drug world, meth is the big thing now.
Meth, and heroin is actually big again.
Heroin has maintained, you know, I guess it's
steady.
A price, it's a cost effective, and it's a different high. People who like that kind of high like that kind of thing, and it's, you know.
I was just up in Oregon at the Columbia River, and they drop a lot of white heroin off in crab pots off the ships coming from China, and then the local fishermen will go out, and 1 out of 20 pots will have like a big bag of heroin in it.
Yeah,
and that's how they're bringing it in now. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. The creativity, like we were talking about this earlier about when you're sitting at the bar thinking and stuff. The creativity amongst drug addicts, like the ingenuity,
right?
It's staggering. You know, I was listening to this radio show and they're talking about, I think it was OxyContin. That they're trying to come up with different forms of it to, like, in other words, if it's not a pill, you can't grind it up and snort it or
they've done it
whatever
now.
they do.
Actually, you can't grind it and
so
shoot
it.
They put a blocker in there.
They said they had like a gel form,
right?
And they said, we're not going to tell you how, but they said drug addicts still figured out how to use it, even though it was in that. It's like you can't top a drug addict's ingenuity. If a drug addict wants to get high, if you could harness that energy, and that's what sobriety does. You get sober, and that same brain works on something else. You know, like that'll be the solution to the energy crisis. It'll be a drug addict that didn't have enough gas to get across town, and he'll come up with a whole new car that runs on air. And it'll be like, how did he do that? He needed to get.
We
to the
do a lot
dope
of like
house,
sober hikes, right? And like people are in treatment, they're just going out hiking, and they're like, "There's no way I'm walking the top of that hill," right? And it's like, dude, if there was your drug of choice at the top of the hill, you wouldn't even be thinking about whether you were walking the top of the hill.
You'd be there looking down, like, how are we going to get to the bottom of this hill?
But what you just said, I think, is so significant, because I always say this to people. I was never paralyzed of what I couldn't do. I was always paralyzed by what I could do.
Yeah.
And I was scared to death my whole life. People used to say, "Oh my God, you have so much potential," and I used to hate that,
especially for dancing.
Especially for dancing, yeah. And when I drank, the potential went away.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying to you when you're drinking, using crack, nobody's like, "Boy, I see a lot in your future."
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that was something I heard at a meeting early in my sobriety. This guy said, man, addiction will kick potential's ass. Like addiction will whip potential. Potential don't have a chance against a good addiction run, no matter what you thought you could do. And you're capable of doing it, but unfortunately, this substance abuse can be dominant.
Scott Redman, I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Scott.
He was Scott Redman wrote a book called Real Men Don't Eat Quiche or Cook Quiche, and he passed away. And he always used to. He had this great line where he used to say,
choked
to people,
on some quiche.
No. He died. He's died a sober man of cancer, I believe.
Really?
And,
Yeah.
but he helped so many guys. And one of the things he says, he go, there's nothing more beautiful than the alcoholic mind when it works.
Right.
But when it doesn't work, it leaves holes the size of countries. And I mean, it really is. It's a beautiful mind. People listening and they're saying, "Where's the hope? My son is out there. He's using tonight. My husband's out there." There is hope for people to get help out there if you're listening.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's an amazing thing. It's hard. I think it's very hard to see the hope.
We got about 3 minutes left in the
And we got to plug
first
Alonzo
show here. I want
Yeah.
to give Alonzo a chance to plug himself a little bit.
Oh, that
Alonzo,
sounded really bad. Okay, just so you know.
A different show.
I didn't mean it. Yeah, right.
That is a way different show.
Obviously, the website is alonzolive.com, and Facebook and Twitter is my name, Alonzo Bodden, ALONZOBODDEN.
And you have a new DVD.
And the DVD is called Who's Paying Attention? It is my Showtime special plus extras and some great stuff. And I'm traveling all the time, so you have to go to Facebook or go to my website and look at the calendar. I mean, just coming up in the next month, tonight, I'm going to be at the West Side Comedy Theater in Santa Monica. Next Saturday, I'm at the Thornton Winery. I'm opening for Candy Dulfer, who's a brilliant jazz saxophonist.
Oh, cool.
And the following week, I am going to the Carlsbad Theater in Carlsbad and then going to Amsterdam to tape a show that's going to air on Showtime next year.
Oh, wow. So this is your second special on Showtime.
This one isn't my special. This is a Comics Around the World thing, and Russell Peters is going to be hosting it, and they're bringing comics from all around the world. We're going to tape some shows in Amsterdam. I'm not even sure what it is. They just told me I'm going, and it's going to be fun. So
That's really great.
Well, thank you so much for coming into our our new show here at KFWB 980.
Yeah, make sure check us out on the web. Check out our old shows if you're a first-time listener, and certainly come back next week. We're here every Sunday,
and you can find our shows live. We archive our shows on KLEANradio.com. That's Clean with a K, and you could watch our old guests. You could watch Tony. Tony's been on a few times. Talks about actor Tony Dennison speaks about winning a Prism Award. And you're listening to Clean Radio. And
we're going to have a great guest next week. Check it out on Facebook or KLEANradio.com.
See the Judah dance.
Yeah, see the Judah dance.
Yeah.
Holla.
And then our ratings will go down.
Yes. I am dressed during the dance.
Anyway, everybody have a great week, and we'll see you next Sunday at 8 o'clock.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to Clean Radio. You can tap into Clean Radio 24/7 at KleanRadio.com, featuring a live video stream of the show, the best of Clean Radio, and even watch Andrew's appearance on Dr. Drew's Life Changers. If you or someone you know is in need of addiction assistance, you can call this number right now, 888-601-6040. That's 888-601-6040.
Do you suspect a loved one is abusing drugs? Call Clean Treatment Center at 888-601-6040 for a free drug test and consultation. A treatment advisor is available to help you administer the test and answer any questions you may have regarding treatment and more. We are here to help. Call us today at 888-601-6040 or find us online at cleantreatmentcenter.com for your free drug test and the start of a promising future.